Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CX UX Leadership Forum. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Adrian Brady Chesena, author of the 4CX Pillars and host of the CX Chronicles podcast. We're excited to have Adrian and our panelists for a panel discussion titled Using Technology to Act on Customer Feedback. Welcome, Adrian. Over to you.
Thanks so much for the intro here, Nick. And guys, really excited to be a part of today's panel. We've got some awesome folks that are going to be contributing all sorts of different ideas and different learnings and findings. I'm Adrian Brady Chesena, founder of CX Chronicles. We have a CX and a CS focused podcast, and we have a customer experience focused agency where we get to work with all sorts of different companies across the world. Today, we're going to talk about all sorts of different things, and I'm really, really pumped to introduce some of today's panelists. Drew, why don't you tee off your introduction, sir?
Sure. I'm Drew Hawkins, the Director of Digital Marketing at Womble Bond Dickinson. Not a name you can say 3 times fast. And I lead If It Touches the Internet on behalf of the firm. We're an AM Top 100 firm, global firm. If it touches the internet, my team has something to do with it. Before I joined Womble, was at a consulting firm before that, building out marketing technology stacks there, and then have some experience on the PR agency side, social agency side. So I've done a little bit of everything from a marketing perspective. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Michael, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time zone everybody's in. I'm Michael Moore, and I'm a senior executive in the customer operations and sales operations world for a few years, more than I any time like to mention. But started my career early on at Time Warner, and really kind of learned a lot about business and how to run things. Moved from there to SiriusXM, where I was part of the organization and helped them grow from 0 customers and no satellites launched to about 30 million customers when I took off, and was responsible for global customer support for not only the satellite radio organization, but also our vehicle interaction platform, and all of our sales operations, both inbound and outbound. From there, moved over to 21st Century Fox, and where they had asked me to come over and help them launch their streaming services at the time when all of the networks were getting ready to launch and go and compete with, Netflix. And then most recently, a turn on the other side of the business with a run on the BPO side, and really kind of learned a few more things about that side of the business that I thought I knew as a client for many, many years, but was incredibly helpful. So that's me.
Stephen, introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Nee, Head of Marketing and Communications at Clockman Metals. We are essentially a metals distributor, so I'm in the wonderful world of metals, very sexy, cutting edge. Like if you get an offer from Apple or Google come versus us, just come to us. I essentially am responsible for all aspects of marketing within the organization as well. So it can range from social PR all the way up to SEO, web development, marketing tech stack, ABM, like anything literally falls under my plate. So I have a lot of wonderful responsibilities with this organization, and you get to do a lot of wear multiple hats. So yeah, it's been fun. I've been with the company for the past 8 years. Prior to that, I was with Delta Dental Insurance, which is a huge insurance company, and so way different world, but very similar in certain aspects. So happy to be in part of the panel.
Awesome. So guys, we've got a great group, and we've got a bunch of different questions teed up. But before we jump into everything today, for some of our listeners, please, this is meant to be interactive. Drew, Stephen, Michael, myself were just talking before we got ready. If you've got questions, if you've got ideas, if there's a way that you would like us to steer the direction in a certain place, please just put it right in the chat there. We will be watching it the entire conversation, and we want this to be an interactive experience, guys. So, all right, let's kick off the first question here, folks, and we'll do a little bit of a round robin. But the first question is, what is the biggest challenge that CX leaders face when sorting, summarizing, and acting on customer experience? This is a big topic here, guys. Stephen, why don't you start us off today?
Yeah, so I would say within the for the audience, like my organization is not a tech first organization. Like we are a legacy industry, and so we're just implementing things that seem to be already in place for a lot of different companies. For example, within our ordering process, fax machines are still used. I'm actually not. I've never used a fax machine in my whole entire life, so that's actually a learning experience for me to to take that. So like the word automation and agile, these are like new buzzwords within the space, and so I think we're also a very commercial first organization where relationships really matter. So every business transaction happens face to face, and so with that, right? Like I think one of the challenges is that you tend to have biases. So if we did a survey, I'm sure customer A, who's like this huge multi-million-dollar account, will take precedent over someone else. So it's like I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have in this organization is like if a certain customer says something, then more than likely we're going to do it. Versus like a smaller company, they might even have a more valid point. So I think my job is to kind of question, is like, okay, like does this only help that customer or does it to think more holistically as an organization. So that's basically some of the challenges that we face, generally speaking, and within my space within a legacy industry, right? The utilization of technology is still a new thing for them. The average employee here or the average salesperson is in their mid-50s. There are more people closer to retirement than starting their careers at in this organization and in this industry in general. So getting them to utilize technology to capture that data from our customers is even a challenge, where they're like, oh, I'll just go talk to them and jot down notes in my notepad, which I don't know where my notes went. But they said that everything is good. So that's the space that I kind of work in. And so it was definitely more for me like hands-on of like trying to educate the folks on how to use certain technologies, why we need to drive them to using the technologies that we're trying to give to them to generate that feedback, and then kind of going from there and then out like aggregating across the board and not just giving biases. So that's my lovely challenge.
I love it. Real quick, Steve, I think the couple things that you just called out that I think every one of us has challenges with. Number one, depending on industry type, there are different ways and different expectations and different norms around how different users or customers or consumers or products and services are kind of expected to be able to give back feedback, right? There's different mediums, there's different times of the year that it happens, different timelines, different cadences. The other big part that you just mentioned, a lot of companies, it takes them a while to get to the point of maturation where they actually understand how to compartmentalize or create customer segments so that the type of feedback you're actually getting, it's laid into different lanes, right? Your point of either high value customers having a different degree of what you can do with the feedback versus lower degree. Those are things that every business has to think about, and every CX or every CS leader needs to really kind of spend some time kind of thinking about as they really grow the way that they're going to do feedback.
Adrian, I'll tell you this, right? I think it's super important to make sure you understand who the audience is within your organization, right? And how are you developing the insights to them, right? Your product group is going to have different needs than your operations group, and finance may have kind of a narrow set of needs. And then, of course, the executive team, getting the regular summaries to them can almost be some form of torture. But I think that knowing your audience and what their expectations are. I've been in primarily entertainment subscription businesses through my career. So, think about the product team who was building the apps or the actual hardware products. Programming and content people, they've got a different set of needs. My ops organization clearly has, the internal needs. So I think that's really, really critical, right? Who are you getting information to? And hopefully everybody has taken that step to think about what they can share across their organization. And this isn't just a CX issue. And that's really important, I think, to be able to continue to grow your customer feedback process or platform.
Absolutely. Drew, some thoughts, some ideas.
I mean, a lot of my thoughts really resonate with what Stephen was saying earlier. I would say the difference between my role now versus another type of role when it comes to receiving feedback is I view my customer, while the firm has their clients and we do client satisfaction surveys once a year, our most points of feedback are attorneys. We have 300 equity partners. And in effect, everything I'm doing from a budget perspective, I'm spending their money. So their feedback is pretty important, right? But then we'll kind of land into a similar situation that Stephen ran into, but internally, right? If a certain attorney or a certain person has a very specific opinion on how something works from a marketing function, and a campaign we are doing or are not doing, a page on our website we do or do not have, that, it's very easy to over index on feedback like that. So I think that it's just really a big challenge to make sure your VIPs, whether it's a customer externally or internally, are heard. But also, to Stephen's point a second ago, you may have a lower monetary value customer that has actually much more valid feedback, so how do you look at feedback across the board? That's what I try to do, is take everything we're doing a click up and see what trend lines we have on feedback. And then when those VIPs make those demands, I can say, hey, here's what we're seeing across the board. We can do this, but we're going to be missing out on this much opportunity here. So the more I can kind of quantify that feedback, the more success I have in doing the right thing.
I love it. And it's the one thing that makes me think about, Drew, real quick, is just, you just nailed it, man. It's the special case scenarios versus the common case scenarios. And regardless of your business, regardless of what type of customer you're even dealing with, the things that are special and that are one-offs, spend some time on it and think about how you can unpack it and think about what you can do with it. But the feedback that's common and you keep seeing it again and again and again and again, those are probably some of the key areas you want to think about investing in your product, investing in your service, or investing in your future team. Michael, feel free to add some ideas onto that.
I was just going to say that the last point I have on this topic is take your time to select the right tool to generate the feedback, right? There's a lot of things out there, and make sure you're picking the right tool that's going to generate the right type of feedback and insights for your organization. That's the number one thing, because if you've got the right tool to be able to collect and generate the feedback, you're steps ahead of the game for sure.
Spot on, man. Totally agree with that. Okay, let's move into the next question. How can leaders better integrate customer feedback into the broader context of CX and UX strategy? Drew, do you want to kick us off on this one, sir?
Yeah, I think the one example I would have would be at my previous role. We did an annual client satisfaction survey. It was, I think, the reason our CMO at the time would wake up every morning was the fact that this was coming. That was like his linchpin project for the year. But what we would do with that is, it was a normal feedback survey or whatnot. We'd look at our NPS score at the end of it. Are we trending ahead, trending behind, and all that? But as far as incorporating that feedback, you would look at your detractors. And then sometimes those detractors were opportunities to improve something or do something better, right? So you go to that meeting with that detractor, and a lot of times it wouldn't be the quality of service was poor or anything like that. A lot of times it just came down to communication misfire, right? And that's something that marketing can help solve. So we use those opportunities for detractors to go in there and talk about the issue. Where did things go wrong? Where can we do better? And then with those, there's a couple of instances our CMO would point to where they're actually able to sell in more business as a result of having those tough conversations, where a client they would normally have lost. Now that is a growth client. But in addition to that, you're taking that feedback and saying, hey, this client was vocal about this going wrong. This could be going wrong in other areas, and this is just a blind spot for us. So it's important to see here's what that detracting feedback is, and where is it happening elsewhere that people maybe just aren't speaking up, or, hey, we can make sure we're not going to repeat this anywhere else, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. And one quick thought here, guys, just to add on, is like what Drew just said about understanding, again, just what do you do with promoters that come in? What do you do with the neutral folks that come in? What do you do with your detractors? What Drew just made me think about is understanding a way that you're going to have some form of a playbook for not just how you collect the feedback, but what do you do once it comes in? And Michael, you and I were talking about this the other day, man, but why don't you add some ideas to what Drew kind of laid out for us?
I was reading the question real quick, but look, I don't know. I think that the way that I have always approached this is making sure that, I start with some sort of cross-functional team to in the upfront design process or the feedback design process, so that I get not only the kind of the buy-in from those organizations on what we're doing and it adds validity to the feedback, but have a framework of the internal customers and what their needs are. From a CX and UX perspective, again, I think it's under who's the audience, and this when you say CX UX, it can mean a bunch of different things to a bunch of different
Totally.
people.
Yep.
In one case, you could be talking about agents. I took a lot of time through the years to make sure that the agents we had at SiriusXM, we had about 12,000 agents total in my network, and the tools that they used, it was incredibly important to us to make sure that the tools fit the job, and we were careful that as the company moved through different stages from an aftermarket product to factory installed product in the cars to streaming products, that we changed the agents UX platforms, right, to make sure that it hit the call flows properly, and it's not just that feedback part, but what else is happening in the business that you can match up with that customer feedback, to address making your business as efficient as possible.
Yep, spot on. I completely agree. Lindsay, before we get to your question, Stephen, I'd love for you to round out this question and just add some thoughts or some ideas around what Drew and Michael are kind of chatting through here.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that, I think one thing that we've seen, one thing that's interesting for us is we're a service and not necessarily a product driven organization, right? We sell a commodity. So the product's always going to be that everyone's selling the same type of product. So it's not really a differentiating factor in how we do business. So, so the service feedback, I think, could have a little bit different, unique case. And I'm sure this is across the board too, right? Like usually people who give feedback are really happy or really mad. So like you want the feedback from the rest of the organization, and I really think that one of the things that our leadership team trying to integrate and realize too is just that is like investing the resources to have a dedicated team, to have the time and energy to kind of take it a little step further, right? Like it seems like Michael, his team is really focused on that, and I'm not responsible completely for driving that initiative like across the board. It's just something that we want to do as marketers. So I think that's where I think leaders are starting to kind of understand that is that, if we really care about feedback, we got to invest the time, energy, and money into having the proper people to actually take that information and implement programs and things that we can do to make sure that it and communicated internally and externally, to making sure that people see that we are actually receiving feedback and making a difference from that feedback and tying it into everything. So I think that's what we're trying to get to in our space.
I love it. I hear it all the time on the CX Chronicles podcast, but we have all these different customer-focused business leaders that refer to feedback like gold or modern currency or a gift. I mean, come on, if you've got executives of companies doing tens and tens of millions of dollars a year talking about feedback like that, pay attention to it, spend some time on it, and put some of your best people thinking about how you can constantly be collecting, assessing, and acting upon feedback. It's one of the easiest ways you can change the game for your business. Lindsay Smith, awesome question here. So I wonder if CX is the new marketing. When companies have hard times, they usually cut marketing first. Nowadays, I see companies chopping CX departments first. What do you all see? Drew, do you want to take this one, sir?
I've been fortunate, at least where I'm at now. I don't know if this is a virtue that we're already lean to begin with. When type moments happen, we haven't really seen too much in the cut. We've been flat for sure, but they have more invested in the marketing part. So I think this was mentioned earlier. Maybe it was in the pre-call or earlier on here. Like CX and marketing are kind of ubiquitous terms depending on what you're seeing, right? So we don't really have a CX team at Womble, but that would be, if you had to name it, it'd be like our digital marketing team, be like my team, right? So I haven't seen a ton of cuts, at least in our specific space, but I do know that is absolutely not the case everywhere else.
Michael?
So it's interesting, right? Because I feel like CX is another one of those kind of buzzword term acronym things that has 12 different definitions depending on who you ask. It is kind of like the new CRM, right?
Yeah.
Because if you ask 10 different people what CRM means, you probably get about 8 different answers. And CX is almost the same way. CX could be marketing, right, for the experience side, but CX is blended into operations a lot of times. So I haven't seen CX, as a general category be affected by this. And again, I think it depends on your industry and your company. When you look at some of the things that are happening in the world today and in terms of jobs and things, Spotify just let go of a ton of people. And if you look at who they were on the recruiting side and on the tech side, because they kind of have built what they're going to build and they're going to slow down their, general product release, et cetera. So they've made that decision. And other companies will think about what's the trend in their business and where do we have to go. But CX is, again, I really feel like it's one of those terms that has a bunch of different definitions. And I have not seen a trend of CX being, downplayed in organizations or companies that I interact with.
Stephen, what have you seen?
Yeah, being part of a legacy industry, what's interesting for me is that everyone thinks that what I do is IT. So marketing is IT. It's because I know how to use a computer. I'm IT. So CX does not exist as its own thing, and it does kind of fall more under our umbrella. So I think to that point, I think there's just also like a branding issue, right? Like, it is a umbrella under marketing to a certain extent, in my opinion. And I think as marketers, like my goal is to always tell the story internally to all of the leadership teams that we're adding value, and this is how we add value, like across the board. And we're set up very similar to Drew, like we're a flat organization where we're super lean. It's just the very do more with less model. So I think that's the thing. Like if you have the luxury to have a CX team, it is really I think that's an internal sell that you have to do to kind of also cheerlead that effort of like this is how we're valuable to the organization, this is how we grow. But yeah, like Michael used an example of Spotify. That's a great example of a more matured product, and so you can definitely see how you're on the end of the curve. And so with us, we're a commodity business, and so it is telling that story of like how we address these topics or issues, and just really showing the value and like, okay, we can take care of that. And so if it's happening, I obviously in my world I won't see it, but in my world I'm constantly telling the story of like why we're important and why we need to be integrated more. And I think every department needs to do that these days, just because it seems to be the shift in mindset of a lot of corporations of like, let's trim the fat. And so none of us are fat. So, so we need to make sure that everyone understands that we don't get branded as the fat.
Just spot on. And I think, guys, real quick, from my view, from many of the different executives that we've had on the CX Chronicles podcast, and then from many of the different companies that we're working with at CXC, this has been an interesting year, specifically on the CX and the CS side. There have been a number of different cuts. Michael just nailed it on the tech side. There's been a bunch of tech companies. Spotify is one of the biggest ones that everybody knows about on today's call, but there's been a number of different cuts in the CX and the CS side. What's interesting about this is there's a lot of conflicting information that shows that companies that invest in customer experience and invest in customer success, just like Stephen just said, this is not a fat department. This is a department, and this is a science where if it's done properly, it adds to the bottom line. It figures out which companies or which accounts or which of your customers are most ripe for upsell, cross-sell, and then most importantly, it's one of the easiest ways that you can figure out how to mitigate churn, right? Figure out which customers or which accounts might not be so happy, right? Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things kind of move into 2024, but there's definitely been some adjustments from many different CX and CS teams from my view.
And if, think about that ongoing study that correlates customer satisfaction in public companies to stock price and growth, right? That when you've got positive side, whether it's NPS or satisfaction, you regularly see growth and positive results from your stock price or your revenue. When you see negative results from your customer feedback or your NPS scores, you're going to see a downward trend there. that has, I mean, that study that comes out every year has not changed the results for, I would say, at least 10 years that I've been following it.
Yeah.
So
That's such a
you
basic
know, it
statement,
is,
right?
it,
It's like that's
but
common sense, right? Like if everyone's happy, we're gonna succeed. If everyone's not happy, we're not gonna succeed.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
Guys, we have another question from Lindsay. So leaders want to go buy technology and say that they are doing CX. Then they wonder why the ROI is not realized. What is your first step to really position them for success in CX when they are seeking tech to enable them? Michael, do you want to start this one off?
Yeah, so I think you start with, you know, making sure that everybody's definition of CX is the same. That's the thing that is the killer, right? One person has one definition of it and the other person has another definition. Get everybody on the same page with their definition of what CX is and what the expectation is. The next thing is, as I think I said earlier, pick the right technology to be able to deliver what your expectations are. You know, and there are a ton of different technologies out there. There are, from anywhere from, you know, your CRM platform's built-in feedback thing with, you know, thumbs up and thumbs down, which is perfectly fine for a lot of companies, right? Or the smiley face, frowny face.
Yep.
To, you know, companies that, you know, add a separate, you know, just that's all they do. And, you know, bringing a company in with the expertise and the technology to be able to manage that process for you can do that. But everybody be on the same page with what the definition is, and then really pick the right tool for what you expect to get out of it. You know, some people are still being very successful with IVR survey type, you know, feedback mechanisms, and other people are doing emails. Everybody is doing something different, and it has to be the right technology for what your company is trying to accomplish. And it, you know, somebody who's making a tech decision because they talked to their buddy at a cocktail party and said, "Oh, hey, are you guys doing CX?" "No, what do you?" "Yeah, we bought this technology and, you know, we're doing this thing." It's the worst in the world, particularly when you've got a CEO who is, you know, I've worked for a couple of rock star CEOs, and they like to come in and all of a sudden they're experts at something, and then it's up to all of us to then manage through that expertise that they've acquired in a 2.5-hour period. And if there's any CEOs who happen to be listening in, I'll gladly have that same conversation with you to your face.
Stephen, what have you seen, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really setting the right expectation and then also having the right key stakeholders in place to make this decision, right? So that everyone across the board can communicate that, hey, this is what are you expecting this thing to do, and you know, what's the real value that you're looking to do or accomplish? Like, do we have that tool already existing? Like, I think the problem sometimes is that the tool will fix the problem. It's not, you know, it's usually an infrastructure or organizational structure that makes that difference. And so, yeah, obviously whoever is pushing it, you know, you don't necessarily always have a choice. But I think, you know, open-minded senior leadership teams should understand that. It's like, you know, well, this is what I want to accomplish and expect to happen, or this is what I want fixed. And so you're like, yeah, and then, you know, you gather the right people and you know, like, don't listen to the enterprise salesperson. They're going to tell you that the tool can do everything that you want, but they need to know the insights of your organizational structure and where things might fall apart. And so, you know, they're always going to say, yes, it can. Like, so, you know, like, and that's their job. Their job is to be like, man, this is the greatest thing ever. Your all your problems are going to be fixed. You know, so just don't, like, you know, you want to pick a vendor who also is honest with you and transparent, but like, oh, I've heard some of the issues that you guys are going through. This tool will not fix that problem. And so, you know, those are the types of relationships that I want, or the selection process that I would want too. So, you know, that's just really where we try to, like, have honest, transparent conversations, and not just to say yes because someone above your pay grade is telling you to do it. And hopefully you can have those kinds of conversations with your leadership team.
Drew, what about you? What have you seen on your end, sir?
Yeah, I mean, 100% endorse what's already been said. You know, technology is not going to solve an underlying business problem at all. I would say, you know, we're looking at ROI and whatnot, like, which tool should I buy? Like, even if to decide even if you need a tool to begin with, because I think in the marketing tech world, it's easy to see, oh, this person's using this platform. And you see like all your peer group using this platform. You may not need it, but you kind of have this FOMO, like maybe I should be checking this out, like maybe I should, and you have no use case for that internally. I think it's an easy trap to fall into. If there's something you feel like you need to automate, I really feel like you should take some low tech swings at it first, right? Like, is there a manual process that you're trying to overcome? I think that's when a MarTech platform or a CX platform, however you define CX, to Michael's point, comes into play. And then, look at a crawl, walk, run. So if you have a good vendor that you're working with, we just signed a deal with a platform for different CX purposes, and they can throw everything under the sun at us if they want to. We could do a million capabilities, and for me personally, I could put together a deck for our CMO for a global board and say, hey, here are like the 30 things we can start doing that we haven't done before and look really good for about 45 minutes, right? And it's really tempting to do. But what we worked with this vendor on is a crawl, walk, run. Let's say, hey, we could do 30 things. Let's do 3 things really well, knock this out of the park, and then let's start layering on capability. And if you have a partner that's willing to work slowly with you and grow organically, then try to sign that big ass contract out of the gate and abandon you. That's a good way to get a good partnership versus just a bunch of bells and whistles.
Drew, I'll tell you, the thing that I feel like I've had a lot of success in is always using a phased approach. 3 phases of your implementation and kind of use of a tool is really going to get it. First is kind of almost your POC implementation. Then it's the, let's scale it a little, make sure that it's really accomplishing, and then it's off to the races. So that is that, trying to do it all at the same time is really going to be tough. The one other thing on this topic that we're kind of going through is also don't be single threaded in the feedback and the insights that you're looking at. So a tool may give you one thing, but you've got social media out there. You've got Reddit posts, right? Depending on whether you think Reddit is social or not. You've got reviews of products. You've got forum comments out there. And if you have a way of collecting all of that data, right, and you're not only using a company's tools kind of process for that, that's, I think, going to be a winning strategy to make sure that you're really collecting that you don't even, or that you're not paying attention, and give you the really full 360 view of what everybody's thinking, not just the people who take time to do the survey, right? Or take time to talk to you about something.
Yep. Guys, these are all awesome ideas. I know from our point of view at CXC, there's a couple things that we talk about on a daily basis, I promise you. Number one, I don't think that everybody realizes how big the global spend is on CX technology. Reports suggest that we are literally approaching $650 billion per year spent by companies on some of these different pieces of technology. And then to Michael's point, everyone's got different versions and different definitions around what that CX equals. That's number one. Number two, even on the CX global customer experience management space, we're already approaching a $15 billion industry, right? Different companies, different services, different agencies that are coming out there in the world to try to help companies fix their CX or improve their CX. And I think one of the biggest things that we talk with our clients about at CXC is, I love what Drew said, low tech swings at simple things that are right in front of us. Assess what your team is, how your team is built today. What are the different roles? What are the different areas of subject matter expertise? Take the same look at your tech stack utilization assessment. When's the last time you guys have actually looked at the top 5 or the top 10 tools that you're using in your business and get mathematical around what your utilization rate's on it? Because on that big $650 billion spend, there's many reports out there that suggest even some of the best companies on planet Earth, some of these enterprise companies, are maybe seeing a 20 to 30% utilization rate on their CRM or their issue resolution management or their MarTech stack. That sounds like a lot of wasted money and a lot of wasted effort right there. So just an easy place to get started.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, right? Because this is just my opinion within my space, right? Is that a lot of large companies now are, they're acquiring companies. They're creating this ecosystem and they're selling you the ecosystem, right? But that's not their wheelhouse. That's what not made them like the giant that they are. And so, I think for us, and for us, what we're trying to communicate is that, don't be swayed by the brand name, and everything they touch is not gold. So we don't have to settle. Like, it's okay if we have a different tool for, this specific, business need. Let's not get caught up in this, like, really, yeah, one-stop shop doesn't necessarily always exist in my world for CX.
Yep. Guys, real quick, 10 minutes left until the end of the session. Audience, please, any questions, ideas, things that you'd like the gentleman to continue to kind of wrap on, please submit them our way. While we're waiting for that, Michael, feel free to pick up where Stephen just left.
I don't know. I think I put enough into this already, so I'm good. And if we want to try to get to another topic, well, we got about 10 minutes.
Fantastic. So then I guess while we're waiting for the audience, guys, I guess one question, and this is a bit off the cuff, but I'd love each one of you just around the horn. What's the one big thing that you're thinking about or that you're focused on for 2024 for the new year? Is there one big area or one big initiative or one big investment that you all are going to be thinking about making for the new year? And Michael, feel free to kind of start us off, sir.
So I don't know. We've made a ton of investments through the years at various companies, and I think that if it's December 7th and you're just thinking about next year, then you're we're probably a little late, right? But the thing that I think is happening in the space today is they have coined, or I've seen at least, a new buzzword out there called accelerator platforms, right? And this is going to be something everybody starts hearing about and everybody will be talking about. The customer interaction accelerator platform and sales accelerator and next action accelerator, all of them are in the CX technology space, all of them essentially designed to do the same thing, maybe with a new name on it. But I think it's tough. Every company's going to have something different. But as far as, what I know, what companies are doing today is looking internally. And look, my space is a little different than Drew and Stephen, because, my space has been with these very large call center operations, using a lot of outsourced operations. And the one thing I think I learned was that I was not able to rely on our outsourced partners, who every single one of them will have a slide that says they're going to give you customer insights and customer feedback, and it's the best in the world, et cetera. And I, to this day, it hasn't manifested from any partner that I've dealt with. So I have been able to, I just had to take that into my own hands, right? Whether it was back in 2014, being a very early adopter to voice analytics, and leveraging voice analytics across, an enterprise that was managing about 1.5 million phone calls per month. Yeah. And now I had access to all of that stuff, and I didn't have to wait for a survey or anything else. I had access to the real data, and then was doing that. So, I really think that, one, don't get bogged down with whatever the new buzzwords are. It is important to think about what your business needs are, and then find it, right? And whether it's networking on LinkedIn or talking to people who are in your space who have done this and how have they approached it. Most people are, happy to, share their success stories and their war stories for sure. But I just, I think that it's for us, or for organizations that I interact with, it is kind of doing what they've done already. And there's not a new great big thing that, people are looking at today. They're really looking at ways to improve the customer experience in ways there's one platform that I'm just incredibly excited about, which is an accent neutralization technology. When you think about the call center space and dealing with large volumes of call center agents, if you can get rid of somebody's accent in real time by using technology, it opens up a very different world of what you can do from a contact center or a customer interaction strategy. So, it's not just the piece of, and again, that was born out of feedback from customers saying, I have a hard time understanding, or I don't like to talk to people. We all saw what happened with, all of the contact centers in India. Everybody rushed there. Everybody thought it was the next best thing. And then before you knew it, everybody pulled everything back out of India. The voice work anyways, the non-voice chat and email is still, there. But it really is taking time to think about what's going to be right for the organization. And then finding the right partner, doing the homework on it, and then getting everybody aligned to move forward.
I love it, Michael. Michael, gents, we've got 5 minutes left. I want to squeeze at least one more of the questions in from the audience. Drew, I'll tee you up for this one. We struggle with buy-in from management for expenses related to improving customer experience. Any tips for selling these important investments? So guys, I know we spent a lot of time talking about technology, but maybe 60 seconds each, we talk about how the hell do you get executive leadership teams to buy into this stuff? How do we get the go ahead to get some of the investments that we need here?
I had something very specific happen to me at my last job on this front, where the company as a whole, we had a 20% cut across marketing. And then I went and asked for $300,000 upfront cash investment. I said, that's great. I actually need more money. And which for us was a big investment. But what I did for this particular project, put together not here's what the cost is now, here's what the cost savings is over the next 3 to 5 years, which far exceeded that upfront investment. And I was able to have back-end data to say, here's what's cost up to this point. Here's the gap that we have. Here's how this will solve that gap. And here's how it's going to make us more lean and more efficient down the road. In addition to that, it wasn't just me being part of that conversation, pitching the CMO one-on-one. It was a cross-functional effort, which points back to what I think Stephen has said, Michael has said repeatedly, where I had our IT team supporting the plan. I'd even worked with finance to figure out how do we get this funding in a more creative way instead of just, hey, marketing's asking for more budget. I was able to use part of it for capital expenses and said, hey, this could be a CapEx. It won't even hit the annual budget. Here's how we can make it work from an accounting perspective. And then had 1 or 2 executive sponsors as well as part of that. So it really, if you try to go in and sell by yourself, you're probably not going to get that budget. But if you have people from not just marketing, but multiple points within the organization that aren't marketing aligned, but would benefit or can at least support your idea, that's going to sell it much better.
Absolutely. Well said, Drew. Stephen, any ideas on this front?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Michael, right? Like what you're really selling with customer experience, or CX in general, or UX, right? It's common sense. Like Michael said himself, like, happy customers, higher revenue, right? So if you're already if you're challenged by your leadership team with that concept, then it's already going to be a challenge. And I think,
for sure.
I try to make it a little bit more practical. It's like, it comes down to a trust issue. So, like, what are the wins that you've had? Share those victories. Like, make sure they understand that, did you like what we did here? Did you like the results that came from it? And so you're really building this really trust relationship of like, okay, so this is why we're going in. And I think selling and investments is tough because it's like selling is you're asking for money, and that's what they're selling is associated with asking for money. Investments is just investing into our future. So it is really slight messaging or communication channels of how you're presenting it as well. And those are really things that, like, really think about, like, how can we continue to build the trust of our leadership team so that when we're talking about these topics, it's not we need to do this and we need this kind of money. It's like, oh, here's what we're going to accomplish. And then, hopefully you won't have to have those general conversations specifically towards just a specific project. And it's just the trust to give you the money to build what you need to do.
Love it. Love it. Michael, any ideas?
Real quickly, a cross-functional team that supports what you're trying to accomplish, absolutely positively one of the top things that helps this. Here's the other thing that I learned at some point during my career journey. I have regularly just taken our finance team and I put them in the room with the company that I'm trying to buy a product from, and I let finance develop the ROI reports by themselves. I'm not in the room. My team's not in the room. So it's not the finance organization creates these reports. They're the ones. Now I can walk in and say, I didn't create the reports. I'm not the one who's trying to, do a little bit of smoke and mirrors. This is what the finance leadership has said they want to see in order to justify this expense or this investment. And that has really helped tremendously. In a number of investments, whether it's a new CRM platform or something different. So
I love that. And guys, real quick, all of you said this, but like the customer journey for every one of the businesses out there that are folks on this call, it does require all of that cross-functional subject matter expertise to get an excellent handle on how you're going to optimize and build an incredible customer experience. So guys, we're at time. This has been an absolute pleasure. Awesome job, Drew, Steve, and Michael. Thank you so much for all the ideas, the wisdom, the knowledge. Been an absolute pleasure. Nick, I'm going to kick it back over to you, sir.
Great. And thank you all for such a thoughtful and practical panel discussion. This was great. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event.